Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Now in today's video, we are going to look at a complete end-to-end Jenkins CI/CD pipeline where we will have our code in a GitHub repository, and then we will set up our Jenkins server using a container. Then we will use Maven to build and to test our code. Next, we will use SonarQube as a static code analysis tool to scan our code for vulnerabilities and code smells. Now the SonarQube server will also be running in a container. Next, we will build a Docker image out of our application using a Docker file. And then we will use Aqua Trivy to scan the file system and to scan the Docker image as well. Next, we will authenticate using our Jenkinsfile with Google Cloud using Google Cloud Auth command. And then from there, we will configure how to push Docker image from our Jenkinsfile to Google Artifact Registry. So this is going to be our container storage platform. Next, we will deploy the container that we stored inside the Artifact Registry to Google Cloud Run. And then from there, we will access our application on our browser via an HTTPS link. Join me as we work through this project from end to end, and leave any questions that you may have in the comment section below. Now, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. And now let's get into it. Now for this project, we are going to look at how to deploy an application to Google Cloud Run using Jenkins CI/CD pipeline. Our application is Java based, and so we're using Spring Boot since we need to access the UI on our browser. We will build it with Maven, and we have some shell commands that we will run. We will create a Jenkins file to run our pipeline, and we will automate it with a GitHub Webhook. And then we will need a containerization tool, which is Docker. And then we need a GCP account and a gcloud CLI installed in our Jenkins server to run our pipeline. So you can follow the README here to do the entire project from end to end. This SRC is what contains our source code. If you go to source code main, by the way, the main has the application and the test has the JUnit test codes. So if you go to main, application, which is going to output hello world, welcome to iQuant YouTube channel. Inside the main, we also have resources. Now in this resources, we have an applications.properties, and this only has the one line server.port equals 8090. And that's because this Spring Boot application for Java uses a default port 8080. But 8080 is the same port that Jenkins uses. I don't want there to be a conflict. And so that's the reason why I'm changing the port for the Spring Boot Java to 8090. Now, whenever you do that, you need to create this file, application.properties, with this content or with any port that you want to give it inside this resources or inside the source code main/resources directory. And then this will have the JUnit test code, and this should be the correct output we should get when we test it. So this is also a Docker file. You will create a /app. Now, whenever you build a Java program with Maven, it creates a target directory, and inside it, you will have the application, which is a .jar or .var, which is a WAR, or .ear, like ear spelling. We will copy that inside the /app directory, working directory we created up there. Of course, it's Java based, so that's why we are using the Java image as our base image. And the port that we exposed in application.properties is 8090. So that is a port here. And the command to run it, when we copy it, we'll give it this name. So when we run it inside a container, we need to run it as a java./jar hello world.jar. Now, because we changed the port from 8080 to 8090, you need to give it this flag as well, which is dash server.port, the new port number 8090. You have a Jenkins file, and of course, there's a README, and then we also have a pom.xml This has all the dependencies that we need for this Java application. Now we will also scan our image as a static code using SonarQube. So that's where this file comes in, sonar-project.properties. We'll talk about this more when we get to the SonarQube stage. Let's get into it. Let's set up our Docker container. Now for this instance, I'm going to first create a network, okay? And before I do that, I will check the networks that are available currently on my system. By the way, I have Docker installed already on my system, which is an Ubuntu system. So these are all the networks available. So before I create my Jenkins container, I'll create a Jenkins network. Paste this here, and I'll call it Jenkins-Java. Now I need this network because later on I'll use SonarQube to do a static code analysis on our application. So that is also going to be running in a container. Because I need to piece everything together as a pipeline, the Jenkins container and the SonarQube container have to be able to communicate with each other. And that's why I'm trying to use a Docker network for all the containers that I'm going to use. All right. So press enter. Now network is created. Now we can create our Jenkins with this command. Find the command also on the GitHub repo. I'll paste this here. Press enter. Give it a few seconds to get ready. Docker ps. You can also check the logs using docker logs-f and the name of the container, which is Jenkins dind. The server has successfully initiated. So this is initialization. By the way, this is the initial password. Now before we can use the initial password, we need to get out of this, Control-C, and we need the IP address of our container. Just like using a VM, you would need the IP address. So use this command here. And so that is the IP address of our Jenkins container. I would copy this. And on my browser, I'll paste that. And the port is 8080. Press enter. And that should open your Jenkins CI initial admin dashboard. Now, remember we ran the log command. And so this right here is the initial password. Copy it. And paste it right here. Continue. Install suggested plugins. And this may take a while, so I'll pause it and come back once it's ready. So I'm going to create an admin user. I'll just call it admin. Give it some password. For the full name, I'll just call it admin. So you can fill in with your actual information. That's fine. Save and continue. Save and finish. Start using Jenkins. So this is our Jenkins dashboard and it's ready. We have a few issues here. So that's for Java 17. All right. Can do that later. There's also a new Jenkins available. Do that later. I'm not going to set up a node right now, so I'll discard this as well. Now on our README, so far we've set up our Jenkins. We know our IP address, we've connected to it. Now, there are sometimes when you set this up that you will see this error, that it appears that your reverse proxy setup is broken. You usually see that when you use localhost for your IP address on your browser. Now to get rid of that error, that's why I got the IP address of the container itself and you use that. So this error usually is because you use localhost :8080. With that ready, let's now log into our Jenkins container using this command. By the way, this is the same as what I have in my README locally. So first I'll clear the screen. Paste this here to get inside the Jenkins container. So we are in. First, update it. So apt update. Okay, that's done. If you look at the command that I used to set up the Jenkins, you would see that I mounted the Docker socket on my local machine, which is a Linux Ubuntu, into this container. And there is Docker that is going to be available on that container. And so you can check it to be sure if Docker is available or not using this command here. And you see that Docker is already available on it. But it's available for a user. But then we need to add the user to a Docker group. So run these commands here. All right, and now we can exit. Let's do some restart. All right, so our next step is to integrate Jenkins with our GitHub repository. Now, our GitHub repository for our project is right here. It's Jenkins GCP Cloud Run. To do that, I have all the steps written out here. Just go to your GitHub account, create a personal source token, give it these scopes, repo and admin repo hook. And that should help you create a credential, and then you add that to the Jenkins and you can easily create your pipeline from there. So let's go to our GitHub, go to your account here, go to settings. I'm going to open a new tab. Go to developer settings down here, personal access token classic, generate a new token, and I give it a name. I'll call this Jenkins GCP. I'll leave it as 30 days and select the scopes repo and admin repo hook. This is it. So only those two. Generate token. So that's our token. Copy this token and save it somewhere safe. Now go back to your Jenkins dashboard. So on your Jenkins dashboard, go to Manage Jenkins, Credentials, Global, Add Credentials, and we are going to use username with password. Our GitHub repository username is iconc. That is our username, the one at the top. So iconc. The password is going to be the personal access token we just created. And then I'm going to call this Jenkins GCP. Create this. Once your credential is created, you can go back to the dashboard, create a new item, and I'm going to call this Jenkins GCP, and that's going to be a pipeline. Let's describe it as Jenkins GCP. And we are, of course, going to use a pipeline script. If you check the GitHub repository, you see a Jenkins file here. At the moment, it's still empty. I have the stages in there, but it's still empty. There's nothing really in there. I'm going to select script from SCM, which is source code management, and our own is Git. So on our repository, copy the clone link, the HTTPS clone link, paste it here. The credential we just added, you can select it there. In our repo, our branch we are using is main. So this shouldn't be master. This is main branch. And our Jenkins configuration is inside the file Jenkinsfile. So I will leave it Jenkinsfile right there. Apply and save. So that basically creates our initial Jenkins pipeline. Simple shell commands, which is just echo some information, which will just print some information on our logs. So if I hit build now, so you see that it's successful. So it just built or run the echo commands all the way to the end. So it's a simple one. All right, next we are gonna set up our Java and Maven. Since our application is Java, if you want to build a Java application, you use Maven, or there are some other ways of building it, like with Gradle and so on. But in this project, we are going to use Maven. Because of that, we need to have Maven and Java installed in our Jenkins container, right? So I'll log back into the Jenkins container with this command here. Now, usually for Jenkins to run, it needs Java installed. Okay, so most of the time, when you check the Java version on a Jenkins server, it would already be installed like this. If it's not, of course, you have to install it yourself. Let's check for the Maven. So Maven is not found, so Maven is not installed. I already updated it, so I'm not going to update it again. I'm just going to install the Maven with this command. Let's check Maven version again. And now you see Maven is installed now. So next, we need to set up our Maven and Java installations inside our Jenkins UI or Jenkins server. So first, I'll go to my Jenkins, manage Jenkins, go to plugins, available, search for Maven. You see Maven integration here. Install this plugin. So the plugin is installed. Now it's always a good practice to restart your Jenkins whenever you do installations like that. So let's exit this for now. Run the restart command one more time. Now when I refresh this, I have to sign back in. Okay, we are back in. Now I still need to go back into the Jenkins container and run the Maven version or the Java version as well. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is we need the location where the Maven is installed or the Maven home. We also need the Java's installation home, which is right here. So we need these two locations to set up Java and Maven inside Jenkins server. And I have the instructions right here. After installing the plugin, just go to Manage Jenkins Tools, and then you see Maven installation because you've installed the plugin. Set up this stuff. So let's go to Manage Jenkins Tools. When you scroll down, you see JDK, and you see Maven right here. So that's what we are going to set up right there. Let's do the JDK first, since that's the one on top. So add. And for the name, for consistency, this JDK version is 17.0.15. That's why I gave it this name, just so it stands out a little bit. So I'll use that same name here. Paste this. And then you can see that we have to attach the Java home. This is the location of the Java installed. Copy this. Paste it here. Because we've provided the home, we don't need to install automatically, right? We leave it like that. That is for Java. And then we have Maven, so add Maven. For the name, we do a similar thing here. Maven version is 3.8.7. So I'm going to use Maven 387, right? Just to stand out. Paste this here. And we are not going to install automatically because we have the Maven home. We already installed it on our Jenkins container, by the way. So our Maven home is this right here. User, share, Maven. Paste that. And now apply and save that. So we've set that up with exactly this stuff right here. When you go to our pipeline script, and I'm going to modify this Jenkins file, which is our pipeline script. So edit this. I just want to do the modification on this side just to make things a little bit easier. I don't want to be pushing constantly throughout the project in order to save some time. And the first stage, we have initializing the pipeline. First, I have this echo command here. I'm going to add some shell commands here. That is sh Now we're just gonna output Java version and MVN version. All right, so I added these two shell commands here, but when I run this is gonna fail because I need to direct it to where the Java and Maven installations are. Now remember, when I set it up, I went to tools, I went to manage Jenkins tools, and this is where I set up the Java with the JDK and the Maven right here. So I need to tell the Jenkins script under the agents, I will specify tools, and inside the tools, I will have my JDK installation. I will also have my Maven installation. Okay. Now for my JDK installation, this right here, you can click here. This was the name I gave it. So this name has to be the exact same thing right here. Same with the Maven. This is the name I gave it. Copy it. And that should be the exact name here inside tools. Save this. That is saved. And so I can now apply and save this. Go back to dashboard. This is my pipeline script. Build now. That should start the second build. And that was also a success. I checked the Java and Maven version, and you can see this is the Java version and that is the Maven version. This is the exact same results that we get when we run Maven version or Java version on our terminal of the Jenkins container. Okay, so that's how you configure Maven and Java on your Jenkins server. All right, next, let's exit out of our Jenkins container here. I'm gonna clear the screen one more time. Now we want to set up our SonarQube. Now for our SonarQube server, we are going to set up with a container as well. So this is a command for setting up the SonarQube container. Run this, and this may take a while to come up. If you want to monitor it, you can check the logs of this container. By the way, you should see that I'm also putting this SonarQube container on the same network I created earlier, which is the Jenkins Java network. This is because I will establish a connection between the Jenkins and the SonarQube container later on. Okay, let's check this logs. So it took a while to get up, but now SonarQube is operational. So we can get out of this logs with Control-C. Now when I check the Docker processes that are running, these are the two Docker processes. We have the Jenkins here and the SonarQube there. Just as we got a container IP address for the Jenkins, we can do same for the SonarQube with this command here. Run this, and that is the IP address of the SonarQube container. So I'll copy this, go to my browser, paste this there, and SonarQube uses port 9000. Press enter, and the SonarQube should open like that. All right, so that is that. Now when you open, you see that you need a username and password, but the initial username and password is admin. Use that to log in, and then you'll be asked to change the password. Admin, password admin. Old password is admin, and now we need a new password. Just set a new password for it. Enter the appropriate password, and then update. Can close this for now. And this is the first page that you will see. We need to set up a scanning job on our SonarQube server. So the first thing that we need to do, now that our SonarQube server and the Jenkins server are both up, let's log into our Jenkins server and try to establish a connection between that and the SonarQube server. So I'll get inside the Jenkins using this command here, using bash. I already updated it earlier. If you want to, you can still update it one more time. so it's up to date. We need to establish connection between two nodes. So you're going to need the ping utility. So I'm going to use this command to install ping inside my Jenkins server. That is installed. Once it's installed, I can exit it. And then I'll use this docker exec command between the two containers to check if I will actually get traffic from either one of them. So I'm using docker exec IT. This is the Jenkins container name, ping, and that is the SonarQube container name. Press enter, and now you can see some packets of data coming in. This means that there's a connection between those two containers or those two servers for Jenkins and SonarQube. You can use Control-C to exit out of this. Now we know network is established between the two containers. Let's now set up our SonarQube token, and we can use it to do our credentialing in our Jenkins UI. So within the SonarQube here, if you go to the account label on the right top corner, I will open a new page or new tab. So go to my account, go to security, and you see generate tokens. I'm going to generate a token here. And for the name, I'll call this Sonar GCP. For the type, I'll use a global analysis. By the way, I have all the steps here. You can easily follow. All right. So expires in 30 days. And that's the name of our token. Generate. And this is our token. Copy it and save it somewhere safe. Next, let's go to Jenkins. Go back to our dashboard. Manage Jenkins. Credentials. Global, and now we add a credential for that Sonar token that we just created. This is going to be a secret text, and then the token is still available here. And copy it and paste it here as a secret. And for the name, let's call it Sonar token. Create. And now we've added our Sonar token. Next, we need some more plugins, so go back to Manage Jenkins, plugins, available. And now for Sonar scanning, we need some tokens. Let's see Sonar. So these are the two plugins we need, Sonar scanner and Sonar quality gates. Install these two. It's successful. Let's go back to our dashboard. And now Manage Jenkins. Just like we did for Java and Maven, we need to do the setup for the Sonar. So Manage Jenkins, go to Systems, and now when you scroll down, you see SonarQube installation right there. Click Add SonarQube. For the name, let's call it Sonar. For the URL, that is our URL. This is Jenkins. Sonar URL is right here. Copy that and paste it right here. And then for the authentication, this is a token we just created, so select that. Everything else are just basic stuff we don't need for now. Apply and save. So that is done. Now before we create a Sonar token job, I want us to look at how to check out our GitHub code into Jenkins using the Jenkins file. So far, whenever we build this pipeline, what we do is to fill in the information here and then apply and save. But we can actually automate it with our Jenkins file as well to check out the code inside our GitHub repository. So what I would do is inside the build job that we created, go to pipeline syntax. I'll open it in a new page. So this is our pipeline syntax. Click here and go to checkout from version control. Our version control is Git, by the way. Repo. Go to the root of our repo. Copy the clone link. Credential is right there. The branch is main. It's quite similar to how we set it up by clicking. Generate pipeline script. Now this is our pipeline script. I would copy this And inside our Jenkins file, which is right here, I'll edit this Jenkins file here. And inside the checkout GitHub code, I'll add an extra command, which is exactly what I copied. I'll paste it in here. It's quite long, but nothing complicated here. Just that link that I copied from there. This should automatically check out our code. So for now, I'll save this. When I apply and save this, and I hit build now, this should be able to check out my code successfully. And everything is a success. Next, before we do any SonarQube analysis of code or anything like that, we need to build our application in the first place. So I'm going to do this step, which is the build job using a Maven. Now, we already know Maven and Java is installed. So since it's installed, we can run any Maven jobs inside our pipeline. So to build a Java application using Maven, you just use shell mvn clean package. This should build the job. And to test it using JUnit testing, quite similar. This is also going to be a shell script, mvn test. And that should test your code, right? So I'll save the changes here. And I'll try the pipeline build for the 4th time. Build now. And you can see the build is going on. All right, so that was also a success. So we built and tested our code successfully. Now let's actually focus on running our SonarQube analysis. Now for that, on our SonarQube page, this is where we created a token. That's fine, we can ignore that part. In this first page that we opened when we set up our SonarQube, you're going to create a project. I'm going to call this a local project. So create a local project. And we need to give it some name. Jenkins GCP. That is also the key. And for the branch, in our GitHub repo, our branch is main, which is right there. Next, we need to set up the project. So we need a baseline for our new code. Now I'm going to use a global settings for this. Create project. Yes, it's created, but we are creating a local project. So we are going to click locally. We can provide our token name. I closed it. Let me reopen that page. Security. This is a token, and I called it Sonar GCP. Paste it here. So it has invalid format. I think it's because of the hyphen that I put there, and I cannot edit it. I'm just going to create a new one. Let's call it Sonar GCP. This is a global token. 30 days. Generate. This will be our new token for SonarQube. Okay, so I need to make some changes in our GitHub. Go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, credentials, Sonar token, update, and I'm going to change this secret with the new one I just created. Paste that here and save. That's the only thing I'm going to change. So there's nothing new. And then I'll delete the old one. This is the old one. I'll revoke it. So now when I'm setting up the project, I need the one without the dash symbol, as you can see here. Okay, continue. And now we want to run our analysis on our projects. We have Java. You don't see it here, so select other. Project is going to be on a Linux machine. We are going to need this in our pipeline script. But for now, I'm not going to copy it yet. Let's go to Jenkins, to the dashboard, manage Jenkins. We already set up system for our SonarQube. Just right here, we set it up already. Now we need to also set up the SonarQube tool, right? So go to tools and you should see Sonar Scanner installation right there. We need to set this up. Now for this, I'm gonna call it Sonar. Just to stand out, I'll add the number 7, Sonar 7. And this is gonna install it automatically. And I'm giving it 7 because of the version right there. Apply and save this. And now we can go to the dashboard, go to the Jenkins job, configure, scroll all the way down to pipeline syntax. You need to update this SonarQube stage with our code. And so for that, we already have some of the commands that we are going to use right here, but we need to be able to use the credentials that we created as well. So go in here and look for, because we need the credentials, look for with credentials right here. Add bindings. Now for our SonarQube installation, the bindings we used was a secret text, and that is already selected. It's already selected there. And now for the variable, I'm gonna call it Sonar capital T token. You don't need any more, so it generates pipeline script. So I need this block. I will copy this. Now inside my Jenkins file, I will edit this. This is the Sonar block right here. Now paste the block that I just copied. Now I would need some stuff inside of this block, which is a SonarQube command. But to do that first, we need to create a SonarQube environment, because remember we installed a SonarQube on our system, right, on the Jenkins I showed you earlier. So do one more time here, and you should see with SonarQube environment, this is right there. Select that. Select the token that we created. This is the token. Now you may see this error, but you can ignore it. So you generate this, copy this. And now when I go to my Jenkins, inside here, I will paste one more time this command. Arrange it a little bit. Now, you see that when I imported the token in here, I got this error that cannot find any credential with ID Sonar token. Now that's because it's unable to identify the actual environment of our SonarQube. When I go to my Jenkins, I'm just going to use this one. Go to the dashboard, manage Jenkins, go to systems. This is where we set up the SonarQube installation. This is actually the SonarQube environment. Okay, this name or this installation we did. So I'm going to use that to replace what's in here. Okay, now the reason why I can get rid of that is because already we are checking it out with the credentials up here. So we don't need the credentials again inside this. Now with this, I'm going to define a shell block with another one. And now within this shell is where our commands will be located. And the commands is right here. So I will copy this. Let's use this copy button. Come in here. Now I'll modify this a little bit, but I'll just paste it for now. We need to specify the actual location of this Sonar scanner. We specified the application itself, but we don't know the home. Similar to how we did the Maven and the Java home. Now the home of the Sonar scanner is actually where we install the tools. We go to tools. This is the Sonar home. Okay. So how do we actually capture this inside our pipeline? Go to your pipeline again. And inside here we are going to create an environment variable block. And within that, I'm going to create an environment variable called sonar scanner underscore home. And this is going to be a tool. And the tool we called it sonar 7. Now with that, I'm going to copy the name that I used as the environment variable. And down here, I'll reference this with the dollar and curly braces. Paste the environment variable in there, slash bin slash the sonar scanner name that you see right there. So that is our project key. This is our source, which is the current directory. This is our URL for sonar. And this is our sonar token. Because our sonar token is referenced here, remember we saved our token inside our Jenkins. So this actually contains the same information as this sonar token right here. So I can also use a $sign and that exact name, the sonar token there, and it will still pick it up. But we are missing one thing, and that is when we build our project, where will it be stored? So let's go to our Jenkins. So far, let me close some of the tabs here. So far, we've built some Jenkins jobs, right? So if I go in here, let's say the latest one, the latest build, go to workspaces. This is where we build our jobs. Whenever you build it, look at the information we have in here. We have this only one directory source code and then these files. When you build it, it creates another directory called target. Now this target is where the actual Java application is stored, right? Go in there and you see hello world, this .jar file. And then there is jar.original, which is like a backup file. Okay. But this is the actual application that we want. In order to scan it, we need a target and then go to classes. So this is where you have the application properties, which is stored right here. Since this has the application properties, we need to provide this path to our SonarQube. So in my SonarQube, I will add one more variable to be before the as dsonarjava.binaries, and that variable is going to be target/classes. That is where the application's property is stored. Okay. So add that to that. I think our code looks okay. The curly braces, everything is fine. One more thing. Whenever you want to scan with a SonarQube, you need to provide some information about the project key, not just that, but the organization. Now, the organization basically is going to be information about your GitHub repository. So you need a GitHub organization, which is the username of your GitHub account. And then you need a project key. We already know that from our Jenkins. So you pick those two information and create a file and store it in there. So for now, I will save these changes. And then within here, I will create a new file. And this new file will be called sonar-project.properties. And for the information, you're going to have a sonar.project and sonar.organization. Now, organization is our username here, which is icon C. You can use lowercase, it still doesn't matter. For the project key, our project key is Jenkins GCP. So copy that, paste it there, save and commit changes here. Okay, now we are ready to run our SonarQube analysis. On our Jenkins, let's go back to our build job and let's try a build for the 5th time and see how it goes. And you can see it's a success. So our SonarQube was also successful in scanning our code or doing static code analysis right there. Now go to your SonarQube account here, and you can see the results is already in here, and it's passed. We're using quality gate and all. Now, of course, there are some hotspots that needs to be fixed. If you check it, you will see the issue, and that's with the Docker image that we are using as our base image. It says we are using root user, so it's not that safe, but you can easily change that. So that is how you would use SonarQube to perform a static code analysis, and you have your results and everything in one place. If there are any vulnerabilities, you will see everything right here. But for now, it passed, so that's good. So we can move on. All right. So our next step here is to scan our file system using Trivy. So that is at this stage. Now, before we do that, we need to make sure Trivy is installed inside our Jenkins container. So again, we will use the docker exec command to log into our Jenkins container. Now, when I do Trivy version, it's not found, so we have to install it. Now, you can go to your browser and search for how to install Trivy. And if you follow the link, you can see, and this is a script for installing it. This is actually the script I'm going to use. Now, you may have a different version which doesn't change anything. So on my README, I have this command here. It's a curl command. I'll run it here inside my Jenkins container, and that should install my Trivy. All right, so it's done. Let's check the version again, and I see I have 0.17.2. So Trivy is installed. Exit my Jenkins container. Now with Trivy installed, I just need to go to my pipeline script. So Jenkinsfile, go inside the Jenkinsfile and edit this. This is it. Again, I'm going to use shell. Now the command that I'm going to use would look something like this. I'm going to paste it in here. So this is going to use Trivy to scan the file system, that is the FS. And the result is going to be in a table form, okay? And the -o is for output. I'm going to send the output to this file, fsscan report.html. Now you can use any file extension, really. You can use txt, pdf, whatever file extension you want to use, that's fine. So I will save this. Go to Jenkins. And then try build number 6 to see if our Trivy scan is successful. By the way, when the Sonar scan was successful, you see the symbol right there. That also opens the SonarQube, and that is also right there. So that was also a success. So our Trivy scan, let's see. Okay, yeah, it did the scan right here. And everything ended successfully. Okay. Now at this stage, we need to build our Docker image. Remember, on our Jenkins container, Docker is already installed, right? Now do Docker version. This is the version of Docker installed. So we have that. If it's not there, you have to install your Docker inside the Jenkins container. Or if you're using a VM for the Jenkins, install Docker inside it. Next, we need some plugins for our Jenkins job. So I'm going to go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, plugins, available, and search for Docker. I'm going to need this Docker and Docker pipeline. Install. Okay, it's installed successfully. Now let's go to go back to manage Jenkins and then go to tools. Of course, it's always best to restart the Jenkins server, but sometimes as soon as you install a package or plugin, you should see it here. So I will add it and then we will restart it later. So for the name for our Docker installation, I will just call it Docker. I'm just going to install this automatically. This is fine. And it will install from, let's say, docker.com, which installs the latest version. Now for Docker, the plugin is easier to use. So you don't need to set the Docker home and all that, unlike Java and Maven. Apply and save this. In order to build a Docker image using our pipeline, you need to make sure that there's a Docker file inside your repository, which is right here. And our Docker file just uses the OpenJDK 11 as a base image. It sets a working directory /app, and then it's gonna copy hello / the jar file. Okay, so remember in our Jenkins, whenever we build a job, I think this is where we build the last job. Yeah. Whenever you build a job, it creates a workspace where the image is stored. If you go to workspaces, click on this, you see targets, and this is the jar file. So this is what we are trying to copy into the Docker container using our Docker image. And so the location is going to be target / this file. So that's where this comes from. And we are copying it inside this /app, and we will save it as hello world.jar. Right. Now, because we are using Spring Boot by default listens on port 8080. But currently, I'm sure you can realize that Jenkins also uses port 8080. So we can use the same port for Spring Boot since we are working on the same system. I made some changes here by exposing port 8090 for the Spring Boot app or the Java application. Now, when you do that, you need to give the Java command this flag for it to be able to run the Spring Boot application. If it's 8080, you can just run java-jar this command here and it will run the Java application. So that's an important flag right there. Let's now go ahead and build our Docker image. So I'll go back to our Jenkins file here, edit it. All right, let's build it first. By the way, to build a Docker image, you can use a script. I'm going to use a shell script in here. Now, of course, to build a Docker image, you use the command docker build -t, and then you need to provide some name. I'm going to use some environment variable, so I'm going to write it something like this. All right. Now, the first variable should be your image name, and the last variable should be the image tag. These are environment variables, so we need to define it. Now, when I go up to environment, I'm going to define the image name and image tags as these. So the image name, I'll call it java-app, and then for the tag, I'll tag it as the build number. So that should reflect here when we run the command. Now the dot you see here is just for the Jenkins to use the Docker file in the current directory to build a job. Save this, commit changes. Now in our in our Jenkins, let's build the 7th job. So we built our Docker image. Our Docker image is called java-app, which is the image name, and the tag is the build number. Now this is our 7th build, so it's tagged as :7. Okay, and that was a success. For our next stage, let's go to our Jenkins file. We need to scan the Docker image we just built with Trivy. Even though we already scanned the file system with Trivy right here, sometimes building the image also generates some vulnerabilities in the application. You need to be careful with that. So I will do one more scan with Trivy, and this will scan the Docker image itself. I already have Trivy installed inside my Jenkins. By the way, I'm going to exit the Jenkins container in the terminal. I already have Trivy installed, so I don't need to do installation of Trivy anymore. So I'll just edit this, and then I'll add the command for scanning a Docker image for using Trivy. And the command looks something like this. So Trivy, and for severity, we are trying to catch all the high and critical vulnerabilities in our app. And if it fails, there should be no progress. And it's going to be in a tabular form. And our reports will be saved inside this file right here, similar to the FS scan report here. And the image we are trying to scan is the image we just built right here. And this is the name and the tag. So we need to reference the exact same thing right here. So pretty straightforward command. I will save this. So I'll go to Jenkins and build our 8th job. So go in here. And this is the image scanning going on right here. Okay, and that was a success. And you see the results of our Trivy scan here. So that is how you can scan a Docker image using Trivy. Now, for our next stage, we are going to look at how to authenticate with GCP or Google Cloud Platform, tag the Docker image, and push it to Artifact Registry so that we can deploy from there to our Google Cloud run. Now, first things first, you should have a Google Cloud Platform account set up already. I don't need this tab, so I'm going to close this. The Jenkins one is okay. By the way, this is my Google Cloud Platform homepage. If you have one, you can sign in. If you don't have one, you can easily sign up with your email address. Right. In here, you can click APIs and services, or you can also search for services on the side. Either way is still fine. So I'm just going to go to APIs and services. So you have all the services right here. This is the Artifact Registry API. You can click on it. Now, this is already enabled. If it's not, you have to enable it. You can see that you see disable API. So it's already enabled. And so the first thing you do is to go to Artifact Registry and enable that. And it will just be a button that you can just click and it will enable it. I'm going to go to this 3. Now the 3 bars, when you click it, you get all the services on this side. You can pin some of them, okay, so that they are easily accessible, but it's really up to you. I'm going to go to IAM or IAM and admin. And in here, I will look for, let's see, service accounts. I want to create a service account for this project. I already have 2 service accounts here I've used in the past. By the way, these service accounts are under the project, my first project. You can create multiple projects. Either way, it's still fine. I will create a new service account. Give it some name. Let's call it JMSA new. That's going to be our service account name. Same as the ID. The description, let's keep it at the same. Create and continue. By the way, you can copy this email address here and save it somewhere safe. You may need it later on. Create and continue. Permissions. Now, this is how much permissions the users that have access to our first projects can do. I'm just going to use an go to basic and use an owner role. I'll add that owner role. Continue. Principals with access. I'm just going to leave it as default. Click on done. And that creates the service account, which is the lower one right here. Now, once you've created a service account, currently you see there are no keys. We can't really access it externally. So we need to attach some key to it. You can click on this to open the service account. This is our service account, GMSA new. Go to keys. And now you can see add key. So click add key to create a new key. And it's going to be a JSON file. So click create. And that should create a key and download it automatically. This is the key. So I'm going to close this. All right. So with my key saved, we can go to Jenkins. Let's go to our dashboard, manage Jenkins, credentials, and I'm gonna add the GCP key in here. So add credentials, and the kind, because it was a JSON file, I'll use a secret file for this. Browse, it was in the downloads directory, focal something. This should be the correct one. Select, and then give it some name. I'm gonna call it, let's say, GCP DMSA. Create. Next, let's go back to our GCP page, and let's look for Artifact Registry. This is it right here. By the way, this is where we are trying to push our Docker image to. So that's why you see in the Jenkins file, you will push to Artifact Registry. It's similar to Docker Hub. You see that there is no repository in here currently. Now we are going to create a repository. We can create one manually, or we can create one also from our terminal. I would rather do it from the terminal just to streamline everything. So before we do that, I will go back to the Jenkins container. I'll log back into the Jenkins container like this. We are right here. Because we need to implement all those GCP commands and stuff in our Jenkins file, we need to have the Google Cloud SDK installed, or it's something like a Google Cloud CLI. First, you get inside the Jenkins container and you run these commands. You can run them one by one. Okay, so I'm already root, so I don't need sudo. So I get rid of this sudo, and then I run apt-get command. There's another sudo command in there. Okay, yeah. All right, the first command is done. Next, you need to run this second command here. Again, we are already root, so we don't need the sudo. I have another curl command here. Another sudo here. Now we can actually install the Google Cloud CLI. Get rid of this sudo. Press enter. So it's successfully installed Google CLI. Now when I use the command gcloud version, so I typed it wrongly, it should be gcloud with a C, and that is our Google SDK installed right there. Now it's time to set it up from our, so let me not forget the C right there. It's time to set it up from our Jenkins file. First, to authenticate with GCP, to target, and to push it to Artifact Registry. Again, remember our Artifact Registry currently is empty. So let's see. I will edit this. First, let's go to Jenkins dashboard. This is our job, configure. And then I'm going to use pipeline syntax to generate some code. Remember, we put our GCP key in there as a credential. So we need with credentials right there. And we use secret file, I believe. Yeah. So if you pick the correct one, it will automatically select it. So that is our key. Now for the variable, I'll call this GCP cred, as in credential. I think everything is okay. Generate script. And now I'm going to take this block here, add it to my Jenkins file, paste this, and then I'm going to modify this. You can also set some environment variable. Using with environment, like we've done in the past. Now I'm creating an environment variable to reference this GCP credential in order to make it a bit easier. Generate script, and this will generate this block. Okay. But because this is already defined, you need to put it inside a dollar symbol. So it would look something like that. Forgot this thing right there. Yeah. Okay. So I will copy this. Set my credential. We have with env as well. I'll delete this. So what this is doing is just trying to use this Google application credentials as an environment variable reference for this GCP credential that we created earlier. Now, we use this to create a local environment variable. For the environment variables that are up here, these are all global. So any of the steps can pick it up. But for this, it's only limited to this stage right here. And then within this, I'm going to create the shell script or the shell block like that. So our commands will look something like this. Separate this a little bit. Okay, so first we have to activate our GCP service account. And we are going to activate that using the credential that we created. And our credential is referenced as the environment variable, the local environment variable, Google application credentials. And we are using gcloud auth. Next, we need to set our project. So we are going to use gcloud config set project and the name of the project. Now, if you go to our GCP page, this is our project name. It's focal doc 440-200-U5. And that is 440-200-U5 right there. We can also replace this as an environment variable. So I will reference that as a global environment variable. So I will call the project ID as my GCP project ID. That is focal doc 440-200-U5. And I will reference this right here with a dollar symbol. So dollar, and then the environment variable as that. Okay, next we configure Docker to use gcloud credentials. When we are pushing, the push is to a Docker repository. And so we need to configure or authenticate gcloud with Docker in order to use Docker. And that is what this last command is doing here. The next stage is going to be where we actually push it. And for that, I'm going to use a script. I'm going to use a shell block inside it to create an artifact registry. Before I do a push, the artifact repository actually has to exist. Okay, so we are going to create a repository, and the name of the repository, I'm calling it Java app repo 02. You can also use an environment variable for that. It doesn't really matter. And then this is of type Docker. The location is US, and this is a description for it. And this is the project. For the project, I can replace it with this. Since it's an environment variable, I don't need to use that anymore. Just put $sign and put project ID right there. So this command is going to create the artifact repository. And then after that, we can now actually tag and push our image in there. Paste this command here. So the first is going to tag it. So we take the image name, image tag, and then label it as full image name. Obviously, I need to reference this full image name up here in the environment variable. Our full image name is going to look something like this. Now, whenever you are storing a Docker image inside an artifact registry on GCP, it uses this as the URL, okay? And then the project ID, remember I called it GCP project ID. So I need to replace this. And then the repo that we want to create is Java app repo 02. That is what we are creating right here. Java app repo 02. You have the image name and then the tag. So a simple environment variable there. So that's where this comes from. Next, we are going to push that new tag that we just created. And once the push is successful, we are going to output that the image pushed to that location. Okay, with that, I'll commit changes. Go back to our Jenkins pipeline. Apply and save this. Build now for the number 9 build. Let's see. So I did the 9th build, but I got an error. Now I want to show you how to fix that error in case you get it. And the error is at the authentication of the GCP and push of the image to Artifact Registry. So it claims that the GCP credential that we created is not available or it's nowhere to be found, but we added it to the credential correctly. The issue with that is because of this quotes right here. It's because we are using single quotes. If you use double quotes, that should solve this issue. Okay, let me edit this. Just put it in double quotes instead of single quotes, and that should work for you. I will save this. And I'm gonna build one more time. Build now. That is the 13th build. And you can see the push going on here. And you see it created a repository right there. And it was a success. It successfully created a repository. It tagged the image and pushed the image to that repository. So let's go to GCP Artifact Repository. Refresh this with this button here. And that is the repository right there. If you click on it and go inside it, this is the image that we just built. If you need more information about the image, you can show more, or you can click on it. The tag is 13. Remember, our tag we are using is the build number, or the image tag is build number. And this was the 13th build. That's why you see the tag 13. You can click it and get some more information about it too. That's fine. So our next step is to deploy it to Cloud Run and then get the service URL to access the application. Now, before I do that, edit this. Instead of the number here, I want to replace it with the build number or the image tag, which is the same as the build number. So I'm going to add that to this just to make stuff a bit more efficient. Let's do our Cloud Run. Now, in order to set up a Cloud Run, we still need some authentication, especially authentication we use for the GCP Artifact repo. So I'm going to need the exact same thing down here. First, let me close the curly braces. And then inside it, we are going to have our shell script block. Now, the command to deploy to Google Cloud Run would look something like this. First, you use a gcloud run command, deploy, and then we need to specify a service name. Clearly, this is an environment variable. Now, to set up a gcloud run or Google Cloud Run, you need to set up a service. So this service name, based on the name of our application or repository, I'm just going to call this Java App Service. That's our service name. And then we need the image that we pushed to the artifact registry, which was this right here. Full image name. That is what's referenced here. We also need to specify the region. Now, for the repo, we saved it inside the location US, but we need to specify region as well. So I'm going to specify the environment variable region here. US Central 1. Next, platform is managed, allow unauthenticated, and the port of our Java application is 8090. Remember from the Docker file. Gonna use this here. Repository. Cloud Run. This is our port 8090. Okay. Now we need to give some compute resources to it. So memory, I'm giving it 512 megabyte -- quiet. So pretty simple command here. You can also set it up in a console, GCP console, that's fine. But I just want to do everything from the terminal. I'm gonna save this. Now before I run it, I'll go to GCP and go to Cloud Run. This is it. Open it in a new tab. So currently there's nothing in here. Okay. So let's build our pipeline one more time. It's the 14th build. Okay, so that was a success. Good. Now let's check our Cloud Run. Refresh this right there. And this is our application right here. Now it's running all right, but if you want to investigate whether it's running or not, we need to come in here, click on it, and try to access it from in here. By the way, this is the URL. If you click on this, this shows you your application. Hello, welcome to iQuant YouTube channel. What if you want to set it up such that we can view the URL from our terminal or from the logs of this Jenkins file so that we can click on it directly or copy it and open it in our browser? By the way, if you go to the registry, let's go back. This is the newest one. This is -14, and this was the 14th build. That's the changes that I made earlier. By the way, there's one issue with Trivy that you should note, and that is with the Docker image scan. Now, whenever you scan a Docker image with Trivy, it downloads the vulnerability database for Trivy. That's what it uses for the scanning. Now, after a number of times of running the pipeline, sometimes this command is going to fail. And it's not because it's wrong, but it's because it has exceeded the minimum number of downloads you can do for the vulnerability database. So one way you can prevent that is to cache the database once. So download it. So run this command for the first time, which downloads the database, and then cache it for the subsequent times. So you can do that by adding this cache directory to the command. And this is going to cache the vulnerability database inside our workspace. Remember, in our Jenkins file or in our Jenkins build jobs, for every build job, there's a workspace for it. There's this workspace. So it's going to save it somewhere in here. And you do that by just adding this flag to it. And now I'm going to try running it one more time. All right, so you see that was a success. All right, now for our last stage, since everything is a success, we want to get our service URL on our logs so that we don't have to go to the GCP console together. And for that, it's a very simple command. Just gonna add an additional script here. We will still need this block of our credentials. Gonna put it under echo. To get a service on our logs. I'm going to use this command here. All right. So we will set service URL to the variable gcloud run service or services describe. And this is the service name we had up there. The platform is managed. You have the region. And then the format is, we need the URL. So status URL. And then we are going to echo the service deployed successfully. And this will output the service itself. Now let's save this. Then try our 16th build now. Go into the logs, and we should be able to get the URL from our logs when we run this. Now you can see that because we cached the Trivy repo or the vulnerability database for Trivy, it didn't take long for the Trivy step. If you don't do that, it will take so long, or it might even fail because of how many times you download it. And here we have our service URL, and this is it right here. So if I click this, this should open the application, which is exactly that. Let's go to gcloud and refresh this. We go back to service details, refresh this, and this is our application container running. And these are the resource usage going on. And this is also the URL. And that is the region that we set. If I refresh this, you see the new repository 16. Now, before we leave, we need to streamline everything. Because I'm using a GitHub repository like this, I want to make sure that whenever I make changes to my pipeline, suppose now everything is working, right? When I make any changes in my pipeline, it should trigger the pipeline build of a new Docker image, which will lead to a new deployment in the Cloud Run. And so for that, I need to set up GitHub Webhook and connect that with Jenkins. First, I'm going to set it up in Jenkins. Let's use this page here. Go to the dashboard. This is our application or the build. Open it. Go to configure. Over here, you see triggers. So triggers, I'm going to use, this is the one. Select that, apply and save it. And now let's go to our GitHub account. This is our GitHub account. And this is our repository that has our code. Go to the settings inside that repository. And you see webhooks. Click on it. There's no webhook, so I'm going to add a new webhook. I need to fill in this information. The first column is going to be the URL for your Jenkins. And of course, our Jenkins is running at this location right here with this IP address. But our Jenkins is running locally on my computer, and GitHub is hosted on the cloud. So we can't really use this Jenkins URL here, this one, as our payload URL, because one is on the cloud, one is local. How to fix that issue is to use a tool like Ngrok. And Ngrok helps you to put a local application or the endpoint of a local application into the cloud. So even though we are running our Jenkins in a container locally, we can make it available on the cloud using Ngrok. And so for that, don't forget my system is a Linux system, NeoFetch. This is an Ubuntu Linux system. What I would do is to first install Ngrok on my local system. Now it's already installed. By the way, I have all the steps for setting that up right here. This is install Ngrok. I've already installed it. And now you have to sign up. And this is the link to use to sign up for Ngrok account. If you open it on your browser, it would look something like this. I already have an account, so I don't have to sign up. But when you try to sign up, you will see a sign up page and you'll be asked to enter a username, password, and stuff like that. So this is my personal Ngrok account. First, is the installation, and that's what I tested already. It's already installed. If you haven't, just install it. Next, on your Linux terminal, you'll be given some command that looks like this. Now, what this is going to do is to add your Auth token to the ngrok.yaml. Just copy this command and run it on your local system like this. Next is to use ngrok with the address of your local instance. So I'll paste this here, and my Jenkins, the Jenkins is what I'm trying to expose on the cloud. So copy this, ngrok http, paste this. Don't need this slash. So this whole thing is my Jenkins URL, and the command is ngrok http. Press enter. Again, that is this right here. Press enter, and that would start directing traffic. Now you see that there's a forwarding going on here, and it shows that we are currently online. This is the new address for our Jenkins container. This is the address for the online version, or for the cloud, and this is for the local host. So if I copy this and open it on my browser and go to visit site, this opens my Jenkins, the exact same Jenkins that I have locally. Sign in with your username and password, and this is my Jenkins. If you go in here, you see all the builds that we've done in the past, all right there. So it's this URL that I'm going to use for my webhook, for the payload URL. Paste it here. Now remember, if you are setting up webhook, when you paste the address, you need to add slash github/webhook/. And then for the type, select JSON. For the secret, you can keep it as blank. For the SSL, I don't have an SSL certificate here, so I'll just disable it. If you have a TLS or SSL certificate, then you will enable it. And then on any push event, this pipeline should be triggered. Just push events, select active, add webhook. And this will check to be sure that the endpoint is actually available. Before I even trigger a new job, if I go to the pipeline script here, and I'll just make some simple change. Let's say I'll add ... right here. And then I'll save this. Commit changes. This should be triggered automatically. You can refresh this. Yeah, and you see right here, number 17 is running, and this will complete successfully without you having to trigger it. But the only thing is, you need to keep this ngrok interface still open because it's forwarding traffic. If you exit out of this, then the whole thing breaks down. All right, so that was a success. If I click here, it's working correctly. If I go to GCR, this is my service or my container. That is the YAML script or YAML manifest for the container that we are deploying. See that it looks similar to a normal Kubernetes manifest. Here are some logs, and this is similar to the logs that we saw on our Jenkins logs. That brings us to the end of this project. Before I leave, let's do a cleanup. First is to clean up this Cloud Run service. Select this service, and you can hit delete to delete it. So that's deleted. I'm going to refresh this. Next, let's go to our repository. I'm going to delete all of them. I'm going to go to IAM and admin, service account. And I'm going to get rid of the service account that I use, which is the last one here. I'll select it and hit delete. You can disable it too, that's fine, but I want to delete it, so I'll hit delete. and it shows it has been deleted. So refresh this. Okay, so you see that it's deleted. Now we don't need the Ngrok anymore. So Control C to quit. You see it right there. That will quit it. And then you realize that this will not work anymore because we've disconnected it. We clear the screen. It's time to delete the containers. So Docker stop, and I'm gonna stop both SonarQube and the Jenkins containers, and I'll remove them. Now when you do Docker ps, see that it's gone. Docker ps -a, see everything is gone. We've successfully come to the end of this project. Now if you want to replicate this project on your own, every instruction you need is on this readme below. Like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you on the next one.